Shalom and welcome to Secrets Revealed, the Holy Bible. Today we're looking at Genesis chapter 49. There are 33 verses, and before I begin, this chapter is a prime example of why I decided to start this series, to start doing these studies, because initially I only wanted to do a personal study, not make it a public presentation for anyone to watch on YouTube. But I wanted to do this just as a personal mission of my own, kind of like on a bucket list kind of thing. But this is a prime example. You're going to see how different the Septuagint is from the Masoretic text, to the point that you wouldn't even think they were the same book. So we're going to look, beginning in verse 3. Pretty much the whole chapter is different, but let's look at verse 3. It says, Reuben, the Septuagint. I'm just going to say the left for the Septuagint and the right for the Masoretic, or I'll just say the LXX. Well, you know what I mean. The first one's always the Septuagint, and the MT is the Masoretic. So Masoretic. Okay, it's 4 syllables. I'll just say the MT. So Reuben, verse 3. Reuben, you my firstborn, you my strength, and the first of my children, hard to be endured, self-willed. Okay, let's look at the MT. Reuben, you're my firstborn. Okay, so far so good. My might, strength, same difference. And the beginning of my strength. So not the first of my children, although technically he is. It says the first of my children, so that is correct. The beginning of my strength. Okay, why does he say that? The excellency of my dignity. So hard to be endured. That sounds like something not pleasant. The excellency of my dignity is good. Self-willed, so people are strong-willed. Versus excellency of power. No, Reuben, you don't get this. You're not getting those two compliments. No, you're hard to be endured and you're self-willed. Why? It explains more. Why would it be excellent of dignity and power if we see the next verse is showing what he did? You are insolent like water, unstable as water, okay? Burst not forth with violence. Versus, you shall not excel. So this is advice. Don't become violent. And it says what he did. He went to his father's bed. He had sex with the concubine, I believe the father's concubine, and he was not supposed to do that. He was usurping his authority, essentially. Now we're going to look at verse 5. Simeon and Levi, brothers, accomplished the injustice of their cutting off, which means destruction. Who did they destroy? Well, we know it was Shechem and his people because of the incident with their sister, Dinah, the raping of Dinah. So Jacob didn't like that, but it says here in the MT, instruments of cruelty are in their habitations. So no, it's not the same thing at all. Those are very different blessings, are very different words. Verse 6 says, right in the last part, in their passion, they huffed a bull, or they hewed a bullet. What that means is they even killed the animals. They didn't spare man, they didn't spare animals either. And you can read that story where that's what they did. They didn't spare anyone due to their anger. The MT says, it says that in their self-will, they dig down a wall. Okay, when did they dig down a wall? It doesn't say that they ever did that, but let's just rephrase it to the point that it's not even discernible anymore. Verse 7 says, willful, cursed be the wrath, for it was willful. It was their decision to do it. No one forced them to kill those people. They wanted to do that to exercise or execute justice, at least justice in their eyes. The MT says, cursed be their anger, for it was fierce. So willful versus fierce, those are not the same things. And then verse 8, a minor difference here. Speaking of Judah, your hand shall be on the back of your enemies versus the neck of your enemies in the MT. Verse 9, we see some other differences with Judah. He's a lion's whelp, which is a young lion from the tender plant, versus lion's whelp from the prey. Okay. And then we see in the last half of the verse, having couched, you lie as a lion, as a young lion, versus the MT says, I'll just say verses from now on because I'm only comparing with one book. He stooped down, he couched as a lion, okay, as an old lion, complete opposite. Why would he describe him as a young lion and then say as an old lion? That is a contradiction, clear contradiction, and a corruption of the word, I have to add. Verse 10 is an amazing verse. It is a messianic prophecy, in fact. So let's look at this. Judah, talking about Judah, a ruler shall not fail from Judah, those of the scepter shall not depart. Very similar language. Nor a prince from his loins, so royalty, royal hierarchy. Versus a lawgiver. Okay, that's not the same thing, a prince and a lawgiver. Until there come the thing stored up for him. Until Shiloh comes. So that's not the same thing. Maybe that's a translation of the things stored up for him, maybe. But let's look here. This is the messianic prophecy. He is the expectation of the nations. He is the hope, essentially, of nations. What nations? All nations, the whole planet. He is the hope of the whole planet because it is through only one person that all the sins of the world are forgiven. Jesus Christ, Yehoshua HaMashiach. He comes from the house of Judah. He is the hope of the whole world. Without him, we have no hope. Let's look at the MT. What does it say? Verses, it says here, unto him, the gathering of the people. What does that even mean? It could mean a gathering place. It could just mean people being gathered, but it has no, it lost the meaning of the messianic prophecy. It's completely corrupted. It's no longer prophecy. Not that it isn't a prophecy. It's not a messianic prophecy, I should say. So that's very sinister in my mind, that they would hide the Messiah by saying to him, so they're going to gather in Judah? Is that what it's saying? No, he, meaning the seed of Judah, will be the hope of the nations. That is the seed prophesied in Genesis, talking about the seed that come from Eve and Adam. Okay, moving on. Verse 12. So it's just more and more different. Here we go. Actually, this one isn't too different. It's a slight difference. His eyes shall be more cheering than wine. His teeth whiter than milk, versus red with wine and white with milk. So it's not saying they'll be more red or more white. It's just saying they will be like. But here it's saying, no, they're going to be more cheering than wine and even whiter than milk. And this seems to possibly allude to Yehoshua with the foal of the donkey, tying it to a branch to the vine. Maybe he did that when he parked when he rested the animal and started to walk. Verse 14 is completely different. There's too many differences. The whole verse is different. So we're going to see from this point on, it is incredibly different, tremendously different. So let's look here. Issachar has desired that which is good, versus Issachar is a strong donkey. Resting between the inheritances versus crouching down between two burdens. Not the same at all. We're going to look at the next verse, verse 15. So it's not my goal to interpret these prophecies. That's a very deep study on its own. But as you can see, Issachar, it's a very good blessing. It's complimenting him. Versus Mazarek, it doesn't sound like so much of a compliment, being a strong donkey. between two burdens. It doesn't sound very pleasant at all. Verse 15, this is Issachar again. Having seen the resting place, that it was good, and the land, that it was fertile. Okay, let's look at the first half of the MT. He saw that the rest was good. Okay, that's pretty similar, that it was pleasant. So instead of fertile, pleasant. Let's look back at the Septuagint again. He subjected his shoulder to labor, and bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a husbandman. So that's like someone who tends a vineyard. Versus he became a servant unto tribute. That's not the same thing at all. One says he became like a vine dresser, a husbandman, like a gardener. And the other one says he became a servant to tribute. So a servant to tax, a slave to taxing. Doesn't make sense, okay? Or not that doesn't make sense, it just doesn't equate. Dan shall judge his people. Okay, that one is fine. 18 is what we're looking at. Dan is waiting for the salvation of Jehovah. So he's the one waiting. Versus Jacob, I have waited for your salvation, O Jehovah. But we can see it's Dan he's talking about. Why would he all of a sudden talk about himself? Let me bless you, my children. Oh, I have waited for your salvation. No, it's Dan. He's talking about Dan. Let's stay focused, right? He wouldn't divert and talk about something else. Verse 20, there's a small difference here. Asher shall yield dainties or delicious delicacies to princes, versus he shall yield royal delicacies. What does a royal delicacy even mean? Okay, moving on, 21. It's just more different and more different. Naphtali is a spreading stem. Okay, Naphtali is a hind let loose. One is a plant, one is an animal, bestowing beauty on its fruit. That sounds good. He gives goodly words. Okay, he has good words. All right, that's not the same thing as beauty on its fruit. Verse 22, another very different verse. Joseph is a son increased. Okay, versus a fruitful bow. He's not even a human anymore. He's a plant. My dearly beloved son is increased. A fruitful bow by a well. My youngest son turned to me. Advice. Now let's look at the MT. Whose branches run over the wall. That is not the same at all. Very different. Like I said, like two different books. Verse 23, against whom, Joseph, men taking evil counsel, reproached him, and the archers pressed hard upon him. So people took evil plans. They made evil plans against him. They reproached him, and the archers pressed hard upon him. Versus the archers have sorely grieved him and shot and hated him. Doesn't say they hit him, but it says they shot at him and hated him. So yes, the archers don't like him very much, but there are men who take evil counsel against him. They have evil plans against Joseph. Many people understand today that modern Joseph is America and Great Britain. And you can see if that is true. Yes, there are archers who don't like him, and there are men taking evil plans against these countries. Verse 24, another very different verse. But their bows and arrows were mightily consumed, and the sinews of their arms were slackened by the hand of the mighty one of Jacob. Thence is he that strengthened Israel, from the Elohim of your father. So these people, whoever they are, the archers, I suppose, were consumed, and they were weakened by the Elohim of Jacob. He's the one who gave strength to Israel, specifically protecting Joseph. Specifically, if we're going there, we're going to go there. America and Great Britain. Essentially, that's what it's saying. So Let's look at the empty. His bow abode in strength. What? Joseph's bow lived in strength. Okay. And the arms of his hands were made strong. Complete opposite of what it's saying here. It's not talking about Joseph, it's talking about the archers, his enemies. By the hands of the mighty of Yaakov. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. So you can see it's not even the same at all. It's very, very, very different. I wouldn't even say they're the same book at this point, especially at this chapter. I can't take Genesis 49 and say, that I trust these words. No, I don't. Because it's talking about his enemies, Joseph's enemies. They were the ones weakened, not Joseph's bow, not talking about Joseph's bow. And it wasn't talking about Joseph's arms being made strong. Yes, he was made strong, but first his enemies were weakened, and he was strengthened by the same person who weakens his enemies is the same one that strengthens Israel. Verse 25, this is more of a past versus future difference. So it says here, Jacob acknowledges, Elohim helped you, Joseph. He blessed you, Joseph, with the blessing of heaven from above and the blessing of the earth, possessing all things because of the blessing of the breasts and of the womb. So Elohim helped you. You've been helped. You were a slave, now you're a ruler. You're ruler over Egypt. Now look at the empty. By the El of your father, who shall help you, and by Almighty, who shall bless you with the blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lies under, blessing of the breast and of the womb. That's the only part that's similar, the very last two items there. But as you can see, it is more of a prophecy in the empty saying, you haven't been blessed yet, Joseph. He will bless you. No, he's already been blessed. Okay, verse 26. The blessings of your father and your mother, it has prevailed above the blessing of the lasting mountains, the blessings of the everlasting hills. They shall be upon the head of Joseph, on the head of the brothers of whom he took the lead. So he took the lead now. Joseph is taking the lead. But the blessing will be not only on Joseph's head, but also on his brothers. Notice it's a good blessing, not just for Joseph, but all of them. Verses, the blessings of your father have prevailed, not your mother, just your father, above the blessings of my progenitors. So Abraham, Isaac, no, your blessings will be greater. To the utmost bound of their everlasting hills. So it's going to be, you're going to have the blessings to this boundary only. They shall be on the head of Joseph and on the crowd of him, of the head of him that was separate from his brethren. So Joseph and Joseph some more. No, that's not what the Septuagint is saying. Verse 27, it's similar but different. So Benjamin is a wolf in both. He will eat in the morning, and at evening he gives food, he divides it. Here in the empty, it says he will eat the prey in the morning. At night, he will divide the spoil. So you know what, it is pretty similar, just that verse. But slightly different, not too different. Verse 31, they buried Leah. This is verse 31 right there. They buried Leah versus I buried Leah. So I'm not sure if it was Jacob, but he says that they buried him. So we're going to have to go with that. Probably had servants who did that because it's a lot of work to dig and to do the process of burial. Verse 33 is the last difference, but there have been many differences, as you could see. Died. So this is Jacob dying. He lifted up his feet on the bed and he died. Versus, and he yielded up the ghost. So a lot of people can take that yielded up the ghost and can make very non-biblical beliefs and doctrines based off that, such as going to heaven and going to hell. Whereas scripturally, when you die, it's like sleep. The dead know nothing, they have no conscience, they can feel no pain, and they're just waiting the resurrection. So that's all I have to say about this chapter. I said a lot, but Again, this is a very important video, I feel, a very important chapter to cover. As you can see, these texts, although they have similarities in a lot of instances, especially in the previous 48 chapters, I mean, there were a lot of differences in the beginning, but especially in the story of Joseph, there haven't been too many divergent narratives, but this, I feel it really diverged and they're no longer the same book, especially this chapter. So thank you very much for your time. May Jehovah bless you and make your way prosperous always. May he give you a heart to love him with all your mind, strength, and soul, to love your neighbor as Yeshua loved us, to be guided by his Holy Spirit, his Ruach HaKodesh, so that you can be led by the Spirit and not be overcome by the challenges we face and even the sin that we deal with every day, our weaknesses, but to overcome it with his help, the help of our Creator. So I just thank you again. This is Jack Knight signing off for Secrets Revealed, the Holy Bible. Shalom.